Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more The Executive Branch. Today, we are looking at the actual presidency of John Adams and the major events that took place under the Adams presidency. Now, he serves only one term, but yeah, it is known for a number of things. Now, perhaps one of the biggest things we can look at is one of the most influential chief justices in United States history that Adams puts into place. And this is Chief Justice John Marshall, fourth Chief Justice. I think he was fourth, if I remember right. But yeah, fourth Chief Justice. Marshall also served as Secretary of State. Um, and it's just a temporary time, but he's in there for a short bit of time, June through of 1800 to March of 1801. So it's not even a year he's in there, but yeah, it's after he would then leave because he had been nominated to be Chief Justice and successfully accepted by the Senate. I think the Senate does the acceptance of it, but yeah, and he's also a member of the United States House of Representatives representing Virginia's 13th district. So yeah, he's in a lot of political levels. My mind blanked on me there, but yeah, what he's known for most is the influence he would have on the way the Supreme Court makes its decisions and many of the standards that would be set in the Supreme Court. So, yeah, John Marshall, highly influential. Now, the Adams Supreme Court would also go through what is known as the XYZ affair. And this, yeah, this is as per Wikipedia, political and diplomatic episode in 1797 and 1798, early in his presidency, involving a confrontation between the United States and Republican France that led to the Quasi War. Yeah. The name itself derives from the substitution of the letters X, Y, and Z for the names of French diplomats. But yeah. So essentially, it was a group sent by the French in July of 1797 to negotiate um, a solution to problems that were ratcheting tensions that might end up in a war. Um, but certain diplomats, Charles Cotesworth, Pinckney, John Marshall, and Elbridge Gerry, the guy who gerrymandering is named after, were approached through informal channels by agents of the French Foreign Minister Talleyrand. So yeah, um, and demanded bribes and a loan before formal negotiations could begin. Although it was widely known that diplomats from other nations had paid bribes to deal with Talleyrand at the time, the Americans were offended by the demands and eventually left France without ever engaging in formal negotiations. And you got to remember, like I said, there was already tension being ratcheted up from a number of issues. Now, um, it would lead to what's called the Quasi War, which is an undeclared naval war. And it was fought between 1798 and 1800 between the U.S. and the First French Republic, mainly in the Caribbean and off the east coast of the United States. So, yeah, there's battles on the oceans, but it's not a war we would declare. Yeah, see, it would last just over 2 years. But it's because while we're technically not at war, it's still war. Congress suspended repayment of French loans incurred during the Revolutionary War. Remember, the French did assist the Americans in um, the Revolutionary War because the French were no fans of the British. So, yeah, we would get help from a number of different countries who were not friendly with the British. So, yeah. Um, ba, 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 ba. But yeah, I'm sure it's part of the growing issues that would again lead to the XYZ affair, which in turn would cause the quasi war. So, yeah, the inability to, or the unwillingness to pay off the loans. Um, yeah. Interpretations of the 1778 treaties of alliance and commerce between France and the U.S. France then engaged in 1792 to 1797 War of the First Coalition. So yeah, and that included Great Britain. Um, and it was seen the Jade Treaty itself, which was one signed with Britain, as incompatible to the treaties, alliance, and commerce. So, yeah, there's a number. We've got what they see as conflicting treaties, suspended payments, And like I said, this brings about a coalition trying to go to France to take care of issues that are going on, and to kind of calm things down. But of course, Talleyrand wanted to be paid before he would go into diplomatic sessions with United States diplomats. And these diplomats were like, no, we're not doing that. And thus, the quasi-war. But, anyway, during Adams' term, we also have what's known as the Treaty of San Lorenzo, or Pinckney's Treaty. And again, this is between the United States and Spain. And it would set, remember, Spain still owned what is modern day Florida, parts of Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. So, yeah, it would set an actual border. Boop, 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 boop. Claim of Spain relinquished in 1795, former boundary of West Florida. So, yeah, it was all the way over here, and originally it went up the river around this line and this, but because there was such a conflict, the treaty would be signed and cede this over to the U.S., this piece of land here. Which, in the big picture, isn't a lot of land, but it does quite a bit in regards to begin the building of the U.S. Because up to that point, you know, we had only been so big. But yeah, it gave a definitive border and also gave the U.S. navigation rights along the Mississippi River, which were seen as hugely valuable because you have a port here in New Orleans. You could go up the river and it took you all the way up through the U.S. So the Mississippi River was highly important. And so that was a big moment under Adams. Now, the Alien and Sedition Acts. They are set of 4 laws enacted in 1798 that applied restrictions to immigration and speech in the United States. As per Wikipedia here, the Naturalization Act increased the requirements to seek citizenship. The Alien Friends Act allowed the president to imprison and deport non-citizens. The Alien Enemies Act gave the president additional powers to detain non-citizens during times of war, and the Sedition Act criminalized false and malicious statements about the federal government. So yeah. Um the Alien Friends Act and Sedition Act expired after a set number of years, and the Naturalization Act was repealed in 1802 during the Jefferson presidency. The Alien Enemies Act is actually still in effect. So, yeah. And remember, the Alien Enemies Act gave the president additional powers to detain non citizens during times of war. So, prisoners of war, essentially. But yeah, the Alien Sedition Acts would become a big breaking point for a lot of people. Now, we also have the fact that Adams would set the final location of the, I think it was setting the final location of the United States. The idea of a city to be built had already been established under Washington, but I believe Adams added a few more things to this. Moved to Washington, D.C. In 1790, Congress, under the Washington presidency, through the Residence Act, had set the site for a permanent national capital along the Potomac River. In December of 1800 was set as the deadline for completion of government buildings in their new capital. And yeah, anyway, Congress would adjourn its final meeting in Philadelphia in 1800 and officially cease to be the seat of government and to officially be moved to Washington, D.C. And Adams is the president this happens under. So, yeah. It's very interesting. So, remember, Adams took office 1797 and would stay in office until March of 1801. So yeah, if he's heading down there in 1800, it's toward the end of his first term, but he is the first U.S. president to go to the new capital. He would also be. Adams was always in strong opposition to slavery. And he would sign the Slave Trade Act of 1800. It would limit American involvement in the trade of human cargo. Essentially, the ability to purchase and sell slavery. So, yeah. So while this kind of put a further kibosh on the ability to bring new slaves into the country, it didn't end slavery in and as of itself. But yeah, it would outlaw the importation of slaves. So, like I said, there's no more slaves being brought into the United States from Africa. It is to be no more that slaves can be brought. Again, it doesn't end slavery in and of itself. But what would happen is a lot of slaves, they would have children, and those children would be sold and raised as human livestock. So yeah, but John Adams makes a huge move in ending further bringing in of slaves. So yeah, he contributed quite a bit to that because again, he was not a fan of slavery. He makes this clear. So yeah, and then also under John Adams, uh, we have the Logan Act, and it criminalizes negotiation by unauthorized American citizens with foreign governments having a dispute with the United States. So it says essentially that the only ones we have that can negotiate with these countries we are in a dispute with are the assigned diplomats. If a certain person can't just take it upon themselves if they're not assigned to be a negotiator. They can't just take it upon themselves and try to negotiate for the U.S. That's not how that works, And this confirms it because, unfortunately, yeah, George Logan. He tried to negotiate with France on behalf of the U.S. Oh, goodness. But yeah. Only 2 people have ever been indicted on charges of violating the actual act. One in 1802 during Thomas Jefferson's presidency, and the other in 1852. But neither were convicted. So, yeah. It is an interesting thing that there had to be a law made for this. Oh boy. Yeah. But it is insane. All that would happen under Adams' presidency, even though it would be only one term. Because a lot of events do happen. And we will see this happen, but he would also, again, set a lot of the standards in the U.S. for a different number of things. So, yeah. But, with that said, this will be the end of this episode. As always, educate thyself Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting these links, and I'll even be putting more in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.